I'm Shauna Harper of Pivot Magazine, and I'm excited to welcome you to the Pivot Magazine podcast show, where we love to share the stories of Canadian entrepreneurs at different stages of their business. And this month, our city is Calgary, and so we're excited to welcome the Development Director of Startup Calgary, Andrew Browne. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Shauna. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on this podcast. And really, we have a lot of communities that are just kind of in their starting phase, as well as ones that have, been trucking along for about a year or so. And we're excited to bring on Calgary because you guys are actually one of our more mature communities and more developed than many of our other ones across Canada. So first of all, how long has Startup Calgary been around?
So Startup Calgary's been around for about 4 years now. We actually launched, the start of Startup Calgary actually was our first launch party back in 2010. And since then we've come a long way. Like at first it basically just started with a group of entrepreneurs that wanted more opportunity to meet other entrepreneurs, more opportunity to connect with each other and access resources. And at the time, about 4 years ago, there wasn't much going on for the startup community in Calgary. So in that time, in the last 4 years, we've definitely come a long way.
You have. It's amazing. It's only been 4 years. You had joined Startup Canada, and I remember tweeting you guys because I had heard you had done 90 events last year, and we were so proud here in Prince George, thinking we had done 17, and when we heard you had done 90, that's just a crazy number. How do you guys manage that many events?
Well, a big part of that was actually the addition of a new event that we brought on. I think it was about last March, and it was called Hack Night. And essentially, what Hack Night was all about was giving people, developers in particular, a reason to get out of their basement, their garages, their home offices, come down to a common space and work on a project that they're working on, kind of with a support group that can help them get through problems and issues that they're having with whatever stage of that they're at. So that was a big part of it. And that's, like I said, a weekly event that still brings out about 15 or 20 people each week, a lot of them new to the community and just kind of exploring. But it's a good way for us to kind of point people in the right direction from there, show people other opportunities in the community that they might be better suited for. So in terms of managing 90 projects, it's definitely a challenge. Obviously, as a nonprofit organization, we operate with limited resources and scarce resources, but we do what we can with what we have. And we call out to the community and the people that are involved on a regular basis to help us out with that kind of thing. So we try to onboard people into positions that they can actually take the reins on some of the events. And then we just offer support in the background to help them, have access to the resources and the support that they need, and also just make sure that the events are of high quality and up to the par that Startup Calgary set for ourselves.
And so your events there that are run do you also have volunteer help then too, besides yourself?
That's correct.
Yeah. And so you mentioned that you're a nonprofit. You're the one paid employee, but you were saying that there was also another one kind of part-time before it?
Yeah, so recently we actually formed an official partnership with Innovate Calgary, which is a government-funded institute here in town. And with that partnership, they essentially provide us with part-time staff for 2 or 3 days a week. And that was Camille McInnes. And we recently put her in place under the VP of Events and Programs position, and what she does is kind of organize and coordinates everything, make sure volunteers are at certain events, make sure that we have everything that we need to run a successful event on a regular basis. So that's a recent addition, and that's definitely helped us out a lot. In order to scale us as an organization. We were pretty much at capacity with everything that I could do with all the events that we were running, and then I guess my day job of connecting founders and other communities to resources. So the addition of that was definitely helpful, and we're hoping that we can build off that and continue to scale and bring people on in other key positions in the organization.
Oh, fantastic. And so because a lot of our communities haven't actually formed societies or nonprofits the way you have, where do you get your core funding from then?
So our funding model is essentially sponsorship from the community. So what we look for is annual sponsors to help with operating costs on a regular basis, and that's essentially a package that we put together and say, look, this is all we do with 90 events and 80 to 90 events that we run a year. There's a lot of opportunity for some of these organizations to get exposure to directly to some of the segments that they're looking to connect with, which is early stage entrepreneurs and startups. So we have that to offer, and when we kind of structured it in that way and said, look at everything that we can do for you guys as an organization, and look at all the people we can connect you with, and then going after sponsorships that way, that was much easier. And then the other way that we raise money is for one-off sponsorships for particular events. Mm-hmm. So like I mentioned earlier, Launch Party is kind of our keynote or benchmark event every year, and it's something that we've run for the last 4 years, and it's essentially a celebration of everything that we do throughout the year, and that's a big opportunity for sponsors to get involved as well.
And so do they sponsor to be a part of Launch Party? Like they
sponsor to be a part. So what we did this year was kind of tiered the sponsorship packages, and we created, if you want to gain exposure through logo recognition, then you can have this package. If you want to actually present an award and have an award named after your organization or your company for a startup that we're featuring, then that was kind of a tier up. So we structured it that way so that you can have different opportunities if depending on the size of your corporation or your organization, but also to get people involved, on a support network or on a support level, instead of just kind of looking at it as a marketing opportunity for themselves.
Yeah.
A lot of people just want to kind of give back to the community and think that a strong startup community in Calgary is important to the economic development of the city as well.
Yeah. And so is this like an annual thing that you need to essentially get sponsors annually, or do they sign on to 2 to 3 year commitments, 4 year commitments?
We've in the past we've done it annually because we were still trying to get our bearings as well. Trying to just structure ourselves in a way that made sense for the community and for sponsor opportunities. So we've done annual sponsorships, and now we're looking more towards kind of getting more 2 or 3 year packages up and running, and whether that's we're still kind of exploring, we're still learning what the best way to approach that as well is. So we might be a little bit more established in some of the communities, but we look at ourselves as a somewhat of a in the teenage adolescent years of development, where there's a lot going on, and we're just trying to figure out what the best way to structure and coordinate all that is. And part of that is definitely sponsorship opportunities. If you look at what we do in our mandate of an organization, we help startups start, and then we try to find financial backing to sustain the operations of our organization.
I see.
That's kind of what we're after.
So you guys are a recent member of the Startup Canada communities. What made Calgary want to join Startup Canada?
When we looked at I think Victoria was one of the first people to reach out to us. And when we looked at the opportunity, we said, what we generally do is look at the opportunity and say, is this something that is going to help our community grow? And is this something that is within our capacity? So when we looked at it like that and said, what are the benefits of joining Startup Canada? And what are the benefits to our community? And what are the benefits of our organization? And is this something that we can actually tackle and is within the capacity of what we can do? Both answers were yes, and it was kind of a no-brainer because of the network and the amount of information and kind of trade secrets that we can communicate between startup communities. That's a big help for us as well. I mean, we're often looked at and asked upon to provide information about how we're doing things, but it's just as equal of a learning curve for us to kind of look at the development of smaller communities and younger communities, as well as some of the more established ones as well. So it's for us as an organization, it's definitely been a big help, and our community has definitely seen benefits as well with the publication in Pivot Magazine, just communicating some of what we're doing nationwide. It's definitely been a big help, and on both sides of the coin, it's definitely come full circle and been recognized from our standpoint and from the community standpoint that it's something that was important that we did.
Fantastic. Yeah, I know that with Pivot Magazine, we've moved a lot into covering, hence this podcast, more of the communities and the communities that are a part of our network to make sure that they get national attention. And I know that's one of the reasons Prince George is a part of the national network as well, is that we get this visibility that we might not necessarily get unless we were part of a network like this. So for some of the listeners that may not really, everyone obviously knows where Calgary is, but may not know kind of Calgary and kind of where the city is at currently right now. I know that we talked and you said it was just over about 1 million people. Is that right?
Yeah, and don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
It's always changing and it's always growing. And
Yeah.
I was actually born in Calgary as well, so I've seen it kind of grow up from, I think, around 700,000 people when I was born. So it is just over 1 million now. I think we're right around 1.2, 1.3, and like I said, it's always growing. The interesting thing about Calgary is that there's obviously a great city, and a lot of people are moving here on a regular basis. There's always new people in the community. There's always new entrepreneurs that are looking to get involved, and the addition of these entrepreneurs is extremely valuable for us because they oftentimes comes from other startup communities or other communities around the world, and bring a lot of that expertise with them, and bring a lot of what they've seen and their experiences with other startup communities with them, and that helps us grow as a community as well.
I know that Calgary was kind of growing up in the 70s. Calgary was kind of my second home growing up because my grandparents were out there. And I was such a huge Flames fan. I mean, and I recently went to Calgary in September and actually attended Beakerhead, the Engineering Arts Festival, and the city literally I feel like is completely transformed into this almost tech arts type community that I don't remember it being like that growing up. Have you found that that's been a huge push within the community?
It definitely has. I think, from Calgary's perspective, in an economic development perspective, we did a really good job of kind of cultivating a strong corporate culture within Calgary, and that was important for our development in the oil and gas industry and bringing international companies to Calgary. And then since then, it's kind of been this, okay, we're doing really well with that. Now, what else can we do better? And we looked at kind of our situation and we said, we have to diversify. We have to make sure that we're taken care of and innovative in our approaches to things so that we're not going to be a ghost town one day, and we're going to, have other opportunities to create value and wealth within our community. And so there has been a push towards that. The startup community itself has definitely gotten more of a voice to Calgarians and to important people in the community and the development of the community. And people are kind of catching on. I always tell people that Calgarians are very progressive people, and when we see things that we like, we tend to jump on full board. We don't,
don't just dip your toe. Yeah.
We don't just dip our toe. We'll jump right in and embrace it. And that's really what we've done in the last, even in the last year in the startup community here. New people have seen what we're all about and have kind of jumped in with open arms and are happy to help where they can.
Yeah, I think you're really speaking the language of, even communities like ourselves here in Prince George, we're under 100,000, but diversification is really important for economic development and for resiliency within the economy. So when you say that about the startup community being able to lead that, I think you're speaking the language of many of the smaller communities across Canada as well. How can we diversify when, we're only known as an automotive town or only known as a resource town or whatever the town that you're known as? How can you diversify? And I think a startup community like what you've created really is kind of the launch pad for bringing in new ideas. So when I look at your website and I see your blog, I notice you guys definitely keep that up and running. You've got things like Startup of the Week and Mobile Mondays, things like that. How do you keep, I guess, the content? Is that something you're responsible for every week, or?
Well, so the Startup of the Week column is actually done by our members. Lloyd Lobo, who's also a hardcore volunteer for us too, but definitely puts in a lot of time and effort into Startup Calgary and helping grow the community. And he actually does that feature as a blog and column for the Calgary Herald, which is one of the bigger publishers, newspaper publishers here in town. So that's kind of where we get that content. Now, in terms of events and community news, the community news section is done by myself and a team of editorial is what we call them. And essentially what we did was about 3, 4, or 5 months ago, we were putting together a new website and we realized we were going to have content for it. So we started kind of reaching out and an outreach towards our community and kind of active members in the community and said, hey, we're looking for people that want to be involved and we're looking for people that are excited about this and want to write about it. And we put together a team of about 5 or 6 people. And with that, they've we basically don't tell them too much about what we want covered, but we kind of give them a little bit of guidance and tell them to put their own fingerprints on the articles and write about what's important to them and what they kind of want to see in the community, and then we let them go. So my job has more or less become managing that content and just posting it regularly to make sure that the website is kept fresh and it's up to date with current upcoming events, as well as obviously the current startup, which has become a popular feature that we run, and a great way for us to kind of connect some of the young startups that we're working with the community in a way that's obviously not intimidating, but gets them the exposure that they need to kind of get off their feet.
Yeah. And so do you pay the Calgary Herald to be able to post that article, or is that a partnership that you have?
That's a partnership, and actually we've done an outreach towards other media members in the community as well, including Metro News, which is basically more or less a relationship that you form with some of the key people in that sector and people that are interested in writing about it. So, like I said, it kind of goes hand in hand with the development of the startup community in Calgary, where as people gain more and more recognition to all the stuff that we're doing and what's going on, they want us somewhere in these kind of publications. And I mean, we start out with a few things here and there, and hopefully we can grow that relationship to a point where they're covering, stuff that we're doing on a regular basis, and not just Startup Calgary, but other organizations within the that are doing awesome stuff that deserve recognition for that as well.
For sure. And so the other question I had was about Launch Party. I know you kind of covered it in the beginning part of the interview, but that event there, even the awards and things like that, is that something that I notice you have the Launch Party like every year? And so is that kind of your flagship type event, or what would you say is the kind of the most popular event out of all? Because you guys run 90 events last year. What would be kind of the most popular?
Well, the way that we look at our kind of event and program schedule is there gaps in the community that we can fill, and what kind of program or event can we put together that would fill those gaps? So Launch Party was actually where we started, and it was basically a group of entrepreneurs, some of the founders of Startup Calgary, Christian and Tori McLean, Arpad Varevis and Sham Al-Sharifa, kind of got together and they said, there's no recognition for some of the awesome stuff that these entrepreneurs are doing in the community. So how can we do that in a way and invite all the community members that we know out there, and invite media members and VCs and VAs and entrepreneurs and show them what Calgary's all about and what's up and coming in the startup community here. And so that's what they did 4 years ago, and they put together an event, and essentially what it was a way to showcase some of the most promising startups coming out of Calgary. Mm-hmm. And what it's become is basically a big party that people get excited for every year, and we kind of invite everyone that we can think about to the party and to the kind of give an outreach to the community, and we take on applications for startups that are up and coming and that we think are at that stage where definitely we can graduate them through our program. If we look at Startup Calgary as a pipeline of startups, we look at the top of that pipeline as kind of early stage idea generators, people that are looking to form teams and have ideas that they just don't know what to do with. And the Launch Party is kind of the end of that journey through Startup Calgary's pipeline, where they graduate from kind of what we specialize in helping them with and onto other things. So we look at the Launch Party as a way to recognize startups that have come a long way but are kind of at that stage where they're looking for funding, or they're just getting launching a product, or just getting on board with a full-time commitment to the startup. And after that we kind of point them in the right direction, but graduate them onto other organizations in the community that can help them from there.
Oh, fantastic. So do you guys also partner them with community, in the Startup Canada, we call it community enterprise partners, because I know that you said that there's some program that you put people through, but do you partner then with other accelerator programs, or with, we have in our local city training programs essentially for entrepreneurs that we don't necessarily run out of Startup Prince George, but we connect them to the funding or the program itself. Is that what you mean by a program?
It's very similar, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we look at it like I said. I mean, we're a nonprofit. We have limited resources, and we are good at some things, and we're not good at other things. And we look at other players in the community that are doing awesome stuff, like I said earlier. And we look at how we can kind of coordinate our efforts and make sure that we're touching every aspect of the startups that progress from kind of an idea phase to an actual launch to a growth and scale model. And so we look at other organizations in the community like Innovate Calgary, some of the co-working spaces that are awesome, Assembly and Accelerator, obviously. And Calgary is interesting because we actually don't have any full-on accelerator programs like some of the other, like Vancouver and Toronto.
Yeah, like Velocity or something. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and maybe that's the next step for Calgary. But if it's not in existence right now, it's something that we can work towards, and we can kind of get entrepreneurs and startups in a position that they can be successful in applying for those programs, and they can go on and represent in a way that we aren't able to do right now as a startup community. We just don't have some of that bandwidth. So like I said, it's definitely part of our strategy is to partner with, like I said, look at the gap that exists in the community, look at what people are asking for, and if people are already kind of acknowledging that and putting together programs and events that serve that purpose, how can we help support those, and how can we get involved and kind of push our members to those open doors.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. So how can people find you online? I think you guys have your Twitter handle is at Startup YYC or?
At Startup Calgary.
At Startup Calgary.
At Startup Calgary, www.startupcalgary.ca is probably the best way to kind of find out what we're all about. You can. It's actually a recent upgrade. We had somewhat of a blog website before, and we recently launched about a couple of weeks ago from a community sponsor / partner called The Coder, which works out of Assembly co-working space as well. They're a web development firm that works closely with another company called Uppercut, which is kind of the design side of things. So that's the best way to reach us at online. Connect with us. There's a tab at the top there. Definitely appreciate any feedback, anyone that's looking to kind of get involved, or anyone that just wants to find out a little bit more about what we do and what it means to the community in Calgary. Feel free to reach out, and I'm likely the point of contact for that.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Andrew.
No problem. I appreciate the time and the opportunity to come on here.
Thanks.